Very much for joining us for this afternoon's presentation on the Courtauld Graduate Diploma in the History of Art. My name is Dr. Teresa Lane and I am the course lead for the diploma, and I'm joined this afternoon by my colleague Alex Hawkins, who is our head of postgraduate admissions. And as I was just saying, I'm going to be talking through for the first part of the afternoon and giving you an overview of the programme, including the full-time and the new part-time iterations. And then I'm going to hand over to Alex for some more practical information. So the form of the afternoon is going to be me seeking, with Alex's help, why the Courtauld and why the Courtauld in the History of Art. Ending this session may have applied for other programmes at the Courtauld. Others may be just purely interested in the diploma. Hopefully this will give you an understanding of what this programme does and why it would be might be helpful to you. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the Courtauld itself. And Alex and I are speaking to you from the building on the right. This is Vernon Square, which is where we are situated. This is a large building in King's Cross, London's King's Cross, known as Vernon Square. And this is where the majority of classroom-based teaching, seminars and lectures and research forum events take place. On the other side of the screen is Somerset House, which will be familiar to many of you. This is the location on this side of the building of our world famous Courtauld Gallery, and is where some of the sessions that you will have as students take place in the gallery. But so we have two sites, which is one of the things which makes our offering so unique and interesting. The Courtauld itself has the unique position of being focused entirely on the study of history of art, and our programmes start at undergraduate, BA level, and they go through to postgraduate, PhD. We have, I think, Alex will tell me if I'm wrong, I think the largest permanent faculty pretty much globally of art historians, with an increasingly global outlook in practice and teaching. As I say, we are based in London. The distance, for those of you that are less familiar with London, to walk between Vernon Square and the Courtauld Gallery is about half an hour roughly, and we are really well placed to access some of the world's best other collections, such as the British Museum, the V&A, the National Gallery, etc. I've introduced you to the fact of Vernon Square and Somerset House, and moving on to think about research. This is at the forefront of teaching, and one of the things which is so exciting about studying here is that you will be studying with members of faculty who are at the cutting edge of their own field and are sharing that research and research in the classroom. We have access to the gallery, and I'll show you evidence of that in a minute, with teaching happening very frequently in front of the in the collection. And we have our ranking as one of the best places to study art history, but also adding to our offering the strategic partnership with King's College London, which is our next door neighbour on the Strand, which is much, much bigger and obviously a far greater offering of disciplines than history of art. And our partnership with King's allows for a number of things, research collaboration between colleagues, but also from the point of view of students, access to the facilities offered by King's, which is obviously a much bigger institution than ourselves. So for the full range of student experience. I should also say that we have a very active student union here with a great array of societies and plenty going on in Vernon Square. So the Courtauld Graduate Diploma in the History of Art is, well, until the forthcoming academic year, was purely a full-time course, but now we're going to be offering over the chance to offer it over 2 years. So it's either a 1-year academic year or over a 2-year concentrated form of our undergraduate degree in art history. Many people have likened it to the way that you can go and do a law conversion degree. For example, if you've done a non-law degree and you want to train to be a lawyer, you can do a fast track 1 year to get yourself up to speed in law. The graduate diploma is sort of a similar offering, but in art history. Our intake is up to 30 students a year. And what we do is we offer graduates from other disciplines, so non-history of art disciplines, the opportunity to pivot, to transfer their existing skills to art history. I'll be talking to you a little bit more very shortly about the kind of people that come and do the graduate diploma, but it's particularly suitable for those who are returning to higher education. And that might be people who have been out of higher education for 30, 40 years in some cases. I should also say we have a number of applicants who come pretty much straight from graduating in their first degree and come in sort of in their early 20s. So it's a broad range of ages. We have students basically who want to gain a broad overview of art history, and that's what we offer. And as a result, it can be a great stepping stone to MA programs, which we offer here at the Courtauld, but also elsewhere. And how the programme works, again, I'll be shedding a bit more light on that in a few moments. But many of the courses, the modules that you do on the programme are taught alongside our undergraduate cohort and sometimes are in mixed seminar groups. So of this year's cohort, I'm showing you two images. On the left, this was taken during Welcome Week, and this was a session that I hosted in the Courtauld Gallery, a chance for us to look at art together. And I wanted to show you this because I think it gives a great idea of the range of ages and the kind of people that are studying with us this year. This was at the start when they were all fresh and probably a little bit nervous, but we had a great afternoon looking at this, one of my favourite objects in the Courtauld Gallery, which is the Botticelli Trinity altarpiece. And we use that as a sort of way of honing our kind of close-looking skills and beginning to talk about visual analysis, which is one of the fundamental skills that you will learn over the year of the diploma. The other image is taken at the National Gallery, and this is 2 months later, and this is one of our seminar groups studying the Physical Histories module. And you see here the student Margarita, who is presenting. You can see she's got her notes here in front of this image of St. Catherine. And Margarita was presenting to her fellow students on the physical history of this painting. So that gives you a sort of flavour for the kind of people that are here at the moment. And I'll talk to you a little bit more now about what they say about their experiences. So I thought it was quite interesting to think about why people come to study at the Courtauld, and particularly to study the Courtauld graduate diploma. And I thought there's no better place to find that information than from our current cohort. And these are all responses from the students that you've just seen on the previous slide. And I've chosen them as they're fairly representative of the range of responses and the range of aspirations, I suppose you could put it, of students that want to come and study here. So the first paragraph is someone who, as I've said, has come to us after a professional career elsewhere, a 40-year hiatus, but coming for their own personal interest. The next person is talking about having studied various courses in art history. Many people who joined the course may have done one of our short courses, either a summer school or part-time, or indeed have done courses elsewhere at the V&A, for example, before they come here. And they, again, this person has identified the diploma as a stepping stone, basically, an opportunity to consolidate and to move towards the MA. Interestingly, I like this last clause, although not initially planned. That is quite common. Students join not knowing what the future might hold, knowing that obviously they want to do the diploma, but not being sure about whether they want to stay on and do an MA. And usually by Christmas, when the time has come to think about those things, a lot of people are keen. And our rates, our ratios for students applying successfully for the MA programme here and indeed elsewhere are very good. The next person talks about the range of subjects and the knowledge that is on offer, and you'll hear a bit more about that momentarily when I take you through the programmes. The next person talks about this bridge between undergraduate and postgraduate training, which is exactly, one of the key aspects of the diploma. This is interesting, this next paragraph, that a student from a different academic background. So we find that students sometimes who apply to us for the MA may find that doing the year of the diploma is an excellent preparation for that MA programme, and have success having done the diploma, moving on to the MA from that point of view. And I've had feedback from many of my students who've done the diploma, who are now here or indeed have finished the MA, who said how the diploma was brilliant preparation for the rigours of the MA. The penultimate quote is someone who talks about being ready for a change. This is someone who's been in a different sector, is coming to the Courtauld for a change. We have people who come mid-career and who may take a year to do the diploma and may then go back to their previous employment, or they may stay on for an MA, or they may come back in a few years to do the MA. So we start a learning journey essentially. And then the final quote, I think, is to enjoy the experience of learning more about an area that fascinates me. So personal interest and personal development. So you can see, I think, from that range of responses, a pretty broad, there's no single factor which motivates people to come to do the diploma. The image is from the class of 23-24 at graduation, which takes place in the Barbican Centre. So a great day of celebration. And then I just wanted to talk again from the horse's mouth, so to speak. These again are all comments from either the last year or the previous year alumni. And again, I think it's interesting to see how they reflect on what their experience on the graduate diploma brought them and its benefits. And this first quote is from a student who came straight away, actually, after graduating from UCL, so from a much bigger university. And he commented on enjoying the smaller class sizes at the Courtauld, and also the engagement with tutors and teachers, and also this final point about having trips, going out and about, which is one of our things that we do across our courses and modules, teaching in front of works of art in galleries and in museums, which brings things to life. This next person talks about how being immersed has got them back into academic life after a 30-year gap. And you know, that is something which can be in the initial stages quite a shock, but that intense feature of the graduate diploma and the hard work is generally found to be rewarding and enriching by most of the cohort. And part of that is because of this next quote, that what we offer here is this rich and dense learning experience and the benefit of a close-knit cohort. So the cohort form good friendships, solid friendships, which last well beyond the duration of the diploma. And I'm showing you here an image of a group of students from last year's graduate diploma who took themselves off. This was a self-organized trip to the Venice Biennale. And so these sort of friendships and these sort of, I suppose, connections last beyond the duration of the course. The next student comments on the range of expertise from the lecturers and the tutors, but also to the support staff. We have a fantastic library here with very, very helpful staff who you can book one-to-ones with, but also we have the full range of student academic services, which includes help with mental health or any other issues such as that. The idea is that you are supported here as students on whatever programme you join us on. And then I've left this last quote in from one of the students who actually did the diploma and then had a 2-year break, and he's currently back doing an MA. And I like it because I think of its honesty. This was a student who English was not his first language, and he found that quite challenging, but he excelled on the programme, and as I say, is now coming to the end of his MA. And I like the comment that he makes about the fact that he was tired but proud of himself, and would he do it again? Absolutely. So I have a favour of the broad range of experiences and backgrounds. Talking of which, I should just say a bit about my own experience and background, and perhaps one of the reasons why I am so thrilled to have the job that I have as head of the programme, because I am an alumna of the programme myself. I joined the Courtauld 11 years ago. I had a career as a lawyer and then in legal publishing. And then having studied English and medieval art as an undergrad many years ago, I came back to the Courtauld to do the graduate diploma and stayed on to do an MA, and then loved it so much that I carried on and have completed a postgraduate PhD, and now have the great pleasure of leading this programme. So I am a strong advocate for its benefits, and indeed I can speak from personal experience to the enriching qualities of it, both professionally and personally. So let's move on now to sort of think a little bit more about how the programme works. And here I want to explain that there are two elements to it, the taught element and then the research element. And I'm going to break down the essence of some of these modules in a few moments. But for now, let me just run through them. So in the autumn and spring semesters, students, this would be both full-time and part-time, undertake our foundations modules. And as perhaps the title might suggest, these are introductory modules aimed at giving students a broad range of art history, and that means chronologically, culturally and geographically, and that's through the sort of study of key art historical events and works of art. And the key skills that you learn in that is visual analysis, as I referenced, but also it's the first introduction to art historical writing. Foundations is balanced by physical histories and exhibiting art. These are other aspects of being an art historian, if you like, part of the toolkit. Physical history is more concerned with the materiality of art, and exhibiting art, as its name suggests, more concerned with curation and aspects around the exhibitions of art. And then alongside these three modules, you then also take an optional module from our range of histories and approaches, which look more at in-depth at themes and periods and approaches to art history. So let me just break that down a bit more. This is the foundations course, as I say, which underpins the first year of learning on the part-time model and runs over both semesters. And as you can see from this, it is a broad range of topics. It is, as it's worked out this year, broadly chronological, but it is not aimed at being a traditional survey course. I think that's quite important. It's understanding, as I've said, key historical events and works of art, but often through important cultural events and cultural encounters. That runs over both semesters, and that is taught through lectures, but supported by a discussion class. The approaches and the histories courses, as I've said, have an element of choice over them, and we hope to offer students the possibility of choosing a topic which is of interest to them. And you can see from the topics on the screen here that they are diverse in nature and cover a range of periods. So you can see with the Crusades up to much more kind of contemporary options and indeed different media. Here we have moving image, which was a new course this year. Approaches is a more text-based art history. How do scholars write about art history, and what can we learn from these textual or critical approaches to art history? And I'm singling out embodiments, the body as subject and object in medieval art, because as well as my hat as head of the graduate diploma, I am also a lecturer in the medieval department. So I lead one of the courses for the approaches, but also I teach an MA in medieval art. And then physical histories and exhibiting art, as I've said, an important part of the toolkit of an art historian. Physical histories is one of the most popular courses, actually, with the current cohort of students, taught by our colleagues in the conservation department, and really understanding what we can learn from the materiality of art. What does its physical condition tell us? And also that can include looking at works on canvas, paintings, but also wall paintings and heritage property. So it's a diverse course, but something which the current cohort, as I said, have greatly enjoyed. That's balanced with exhibiting art, which is looking more at the role of museums and galleries. And this interesting question of how how objects, how paintings are displayed can shape or indeed limit our understanding of them, of the art and the architecture. And again, this is where studying in London and having access to paintings here, I mean, you can see the Barthes, the Folies Bergère, one of our gems in the Courtauld gallery, but this course also takes students out and about to look at other collections as well. The other aspect of the course, in addition to the taught element, as I've said, is the dissertation. This is the research, independent research element of the course, and this allows students to work towards producing a 5,000-word dissertation. It's a substantial piece of research, and it allows you a free rein to choose whatever topic within reason you would like to work on, and you are paired with a member of faculty who supports you through the process of identifying interesting research questions and helping you through to producing, we hope, an innovative piece of work that contributes to scholarship in the field. You have the chance to present that in an early stage before you're heavily into the research and get feedback from other students, but also from faculty. And again, this has been a popular element of the course, and this is what the students in this year's cohort are currently working on. This screen has a lot of information on it. For those of you that are interested in the full-time iteration of the course, I would like you just to look momentarily at this side of the screen, the sort of pale green colour. And this shows you how the course is divided between our two semesters, semester 1 and semester 2. The foundations programme, as I've said, running across both semesters. Histories in the first semester and then approaches in the second. Physical histories, exhibiting art, and then the research and dissertation module spanning 2 through workshops. So that's how your year is down as a full-time student. Our new part-time version of the course will effectively divide the core elements of the diploma and spread them over 2 academic years. In your first year, you would take the foundations course alongside your full-time colleagues. And you would also take one of the histories and one of the approaches modules. Then in your second year, you would come back and take the physical histories and exhibiting art modules, and then the research and dissertation. Your dissertation would be done in your second and final year of the diploma. So that's how it breaks. I think I'm often asked about how much time and what to expect. So I thought it was helpful to give you a rough idea of that. And this slide shows you what to expect on the basis of our full-time 1-year program here. And I think the ratio of approximately 4 hours of personal study to 1 hour of taught time is quite helpful. There are a lot of things to read on this course. Most of them, in fact, all of them, I think, are provided for you via our virtual learning environment, so you don't have to be scouring the library to find them. But there is a lot of preparation for both the lectures and the discussion classes. So that's why personal study has to be an important part of this. And you will see that the deadlines for the formally assessed work are spread over the year. There are 4 foundations essays. These are quite short in length, only 1,500 words. And they are really your first chance to get to grips with art historical writing. And you do 2 foundations essays over the course of the first semester, 2 over the course of the second semester, and you carry forward your highest mark. What is really helpful about this process of doing 2 pieces of work is you get feedback from the course leader, the seminar leader who is working with you, and that is really instrumental in helping you develop your skills as an art historian. And then you will see that the other deadlines run through the year. So a couple in that first semester, a couple straight after the Christmas holiday, and then running through to the spring assessment period, so where we are now. The other point to draw your attention to is the fact that there is some additional formative, so in other words, not formally assessed, but nonetheless important work, most likely to be in the form of presentations like the slide that I showed you that is set on individual courses. So that's the full-time model. The part-time model would look a bit like this. So again, you'd be taking your foundations module in the first year, so you would follow the same deadlines with your 4 essays, and then you would have your histories and your approaches assessment in that first year. Whereas in year 2, you would have your physical histories and exhibiting art module. These are assessed by portfolio rather than essay, and then your dissertation. And again, likewise, formative work, a sort of thread that runs through. In terms of support, there is plenty, and I am the personal tutor to all of the graduate diploma students. We meet regularly for one-to-one tutorials, and I have regular office hours, so I'm accessible. I am helped by a phalanx of very helpful colleagues, not least the admissions team, but also literary fund fellows who can help with writing skills. You can book one-to-one. We have an associate dean for students who's directly involved with the learning journey of students here. We also have a very active and a well-staffed wellbeing service, as I've said, counsellors, study skills, tutors, and further support for students that need it. And we also have, as I mentioned, very active student union and a brilliant career service. Life after the Courtauld is a big question, and it will depend very much on what your aspirations are following this course. But you will pick up over the course of the year a whole raft of skills which you may take with you back into your current employment, or you may choose to develop in further learning. But this key aspect of visual analysis is one of the things that you will perfect over the course of the year. And be able to present your arguments both in writing and orally in presentations. Reading, as I've said, there are a lot of readings, so being able to read critically and economically will pick up, and be able, as a result of that, to assimilate complex material, and you'll get quicker and quicker and better at that as the year goes on. Formulating your ideas, articulating an individual opinion, and presenting that, and whether that's in a group or in more smaller sessions, and this notion of working collaboratively. So these are all kind of the sort of skills that you will be refining and working on. What next? Again, depends on your aspirations. For some, it is a definite aspect of pivoting into a different career. For others, it may be purely for personal enjoyment. But to give you a flavour of the kind of typical, if there is such a thing, paths that students have taken, I would say probably the most common is further study. So whether that's here on our master's programme or elsewhere. And as I speak from experience, some students also go on to stay and carry on to do PhDs. Many are getting active into the jobs market, either after the diploma or after the MA. Others are returning to their job or doing other roles within the field. So there's a very wide range of areas which you would probably not be surprised to hear, given the broad range of ages, backgrounds, and experiences of our typical cohorts. Our career service, as I've said, plays a key part in this journey. I work closely with the head of careers. She comes and does bespoke presentations to the graduate diploma cohort. Because your journey is a bit different to the undergraduate journey, and many students who come to the graduate diploma will have worked in different sectors anyway. So we offer more of a bespoke offering for the graduate diploma students. That can be through one-to-one appointments, practice interviews, huge amount of online material, but also regular industry employer events, for example, speakers coming in from auction houses or other potential employers in the sector, as well as alumni events. So these are this offering is what is popular with the current cohort, and is a really great, I think, enhancement to our academic offering. And also, you get the benefit of becoming one of the increasingly now large network of Courtauld alumni, and you'll know that many of those are now in leading positions in galleries and museums worldwide. And as a result, our network of alumni is global. So there are a range of events around the UK and much more internationally as well, which give you the chance to keep in touch, but also to know what's happening at the Courtauld and beyond. You have support through the Careers Office and access for 2 years after graduation, which many students take advantage of. And also, should you be finding it unbearable to leave the Courtauld, you have the enticement of a 10% discount on further degree study here. So there are many benefits to staying on and also being part of the network. And just to conclude before I hand over to Alex, again, I think to highlight this, I think probably one of the things which would come through most strongly when you speak to students, particularly coming towards the end of their studies on the diploma, is the great strength and support and enjoyment they've had from the cohort that they are with. You get, as I've said, a diverse range of ages and nationalities, but you are all joined together by an interest and a passion for the study of art history. And this forges really strong friendships, which have a life well beyond the Institute, whether it's at the Venice Biennale on the left or meeting up to go for a walk in the park. These are just 2 examples of how recent graduates of the diploma have kept in touch, forge these sort of friendships. So, being part of the Courtauld community is a big part of studying here, but also being part of the graduate diploma community is another aspect of that. So with that, I'm going to stop and allow time for Alex to take over. And Alex, you will tell me when you want me to work through the slides for the applications process, and I will click through.
Great, thank you very much. So yes, we've heard about the wonderful programme. I'm going to briefly go through some of the practical parts of how to apply for it, what you need to provide for that, and some of the related things that might be of interest too. So if we go to my first slide. Just to situate ourselves in the admission cycle for the 2025 entry point. So applications for the programme opened last year. The deadline for the graduate diploma in the history of art is the 22nd of April 2025. And we're aiming to make our offers to students in May. So that gives you a kind of idea of where things stand for the programme. Go to the next slide.
Yeah, I would, but I seem to have frozen, which is not very helpful. Sorry about that, Alex. It's not letting me move forward or backwards at the moment.
Oh, no.
How strange. I'll keep trying. Do you want to carry on talking about the nitty-gritty while I try and move forward?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll just give me a second. And I'll find my own place as well. So just whilst we're waiting for that, I'll go into the some of the next parts. So our entry requirements for the programme, we typically look for students to have achieved a good 2-1 in their undergraduate degree, as you can see on the screen now. And we, for international applications, it's equivalent to a good 2-1 in a UK degree as well. And kind of speaking to the diverse kind of demographic of the programme, we do welcome applications from students with other forms of academic and relevant professional experience, and particularly for as mentioned by Teresa, coming from having been in work for a number of years, it might well be that your qualifications some time ago, and it's hard to track down all the kind of details of everything that you studied a number of years ago. My team are very well equipped to help guide you through what to provide and how to get that kind of information to us. Go to the next slide. I'll talk about the personal statement. There's kind of 2 sections here. There's the 300-word personal statement, which gives you an opportunity to talk about why you want to study at the Courtauld, any relevant study projects and dissertations, and indeed work experience that is relevant to the programme, kind of key skills. One thing I would say is not to go too far down the route of listing everything in the personal statement. You have a CV that you also attach as part of the application, and I can go into more of the detail of everything that you've done, which might be relevant for the programme. You could maybe pick out a few key things and speak to them in a bit more detail as examples of why you're an excellent candidate for the programme. The personal statement is supplemented by a preference statement, which will give you a bit more space to talk about things that are really specific to the graduate diploma itself, perhaps. The way I would advise you to look at the kind of two statements here, the kind of 600-word statement, is really is one holistic whole statement, and not to necessarily over in the first section, the first 300-word section, what goes in the second 300-word section. It's really just an opportunity for you to kind of structure it in a way about yourself and then about the program and how you fit to the program itself. Go to my next slide. We ask you to provide a written work sample between, on my side, the slides disappeared briefly. Just bear with us a second. So
I've still got it on my screen, Alex.
it's working now. That's on my side. Great. So yeah, we ask you to provide a 2,000 to 3,000 word written work sample. We typically ask for a chapter from your first degree, and where possible on an art historical or historical subject. But of course, if you're coming from an academic discipline which is a little further away from history of art, or if you've been out of education for some time, it might well be that you want to write a new piece. And what we typically suggest is that you visit a gallery or a museum and write a detailed analysis or comparison of two artworks or two shows, something along those lines as a kind of good approach, as a structure for a new written work sample. If you are providing an excerpt from a previous essay, or indeed if it is a new work, what's really useful is to give us a bit of context at the front. So you can say this is a piece of a dissertation, or this is a new work that I've written. It just helps us, or as they say us, it really helps Teresa look at the application and kind of understand what the written work sample is, where it's come from, and kind of contextualize it in that way. That's a really important part, I think, just to help guide us as we're looking at that written work sample. Next question, next slide. The transcripts, the key thing I would note here is that, as I mentioned earlier, it may well be that you don't have a full academic transcript that goes through all the individual modules that you took in your undergraduate degree. If that's the case, you can provide us with a certificate. And if it's really difficult to track down different parts of that, then as always, contact my team and we'll be happy to kind of guide you as to what you can provide as part of the application. If you haven't completed your first degree yet, you can provide an in-progress transcript instead. Next slide, thank you. For references, we ask you to provide 2 references. Ideally, at least one of those would be an academic reference. We sometimes say, both would be great, but many people will be applying to the graduate diploma with, some time away from academia or with lots of work experience in between. And if it's indeed not possible for you to provide 1 or 2 academic references, that's where professional references are absolutely applicable, particularly for the graduate diploma. But they'll still need to provide us an assessment of your intellectual abilities, your potential to learn, any kind of the transferable skills that we touched upon earlier in the presentation. Those kind of transferable skills coming onto the program are kind of a good guidance of what a reference can provide as part of this. And certainly, if you have any questions around what an appropriate reference is in the kind of lead up to the application being submitted, again, let my team know, and we'll give you our sense of whether or not that would be a good reference or not. Next slide. Just some of the other parts of what the application requires. Obviously, part of identification, your ID photo that will go on to become the photo for your student ID with us. I mentioned the CV earlier, but also if you're an international student and you need to provide proof of English language, be it through a test or exemption otherwise, that's your chance to do so, and any previous visas if you have needed to be on a study visa in the UK before. On to my next slide, which is around any questions that you may have. So and going on to kind of the contact details for us, and as mentioned earlier, put them in the Q&A. But my team can be contacted at the pgadmissions@courtauld.ac.uk email address. There's other ways of getting in touch with us via various different social media on there. And otherwise, I'll hand over to Teresa.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. That's really helpful and great to get a sense of our offering here. I've just lost that last slide, which I just wanted to go back to highlight the Ask a Student service that we have. Again, if you have questions which Alex and I can't answer, or if you would like to hear it from the horse's mouth, so from the students who I was sharing their feedback on, we have a service in this here, Get in Touch with our current students at Ask a Student, where you will be able to online kind of ask them about their experience. And so if you have questions about what it's actually really like and you want to hear from a current member of the cohort, that's a really great way of hearing it without any spin, but hopefully a positive story nonetheless. As I've said, Alex and I are very happy to take questions if you have any. We can talk to you about questions you may have about the programme, or we can talk to you about questions that you may have about the application process. So please do put those in the chat. I am looking in the chat currently. Let me just have a look in the Q&A rather. And there are a few. Thank you very much indeed. So I'm going to go through them and I'm going to read out the questions. The first question is asking, is it possible to study for this course while working full-time? The short answer to that, I'm afraid, is no, I don't think it would be. You would probably, unless you had, I mean, that would mean the part-time element of the course. It's something which perhaps would be worth us keeping in touch with you about, because we are envisaging that with the part-time element of the course, the lecture part of the teaching, you would be able to watch asynchronously, you'd be able to watch the recordings. But for the discussion classes, for the seminars, that would require you to attend on site. So if you had some flexibility with your hours, and I should say we're endeavouring to ensure that physical attendance on site would be limited to 2 days in a week. So you may be able to work with an employer on that, but that's something perhaps we can follow up individually if you'd like to get in touch with us. Another question is asking is it possible only to do the graduate diploma part-time, not the MA? The answer is the graduate diploma is the first of our programmes that we are rolling out on a trial basis part-time. So currently, no, you cannot do the MA part-time. These kind of discussions are very much ongoing. I think it's fair to say, Alex, isn't it? And that may change in the future. I have a question about the weekly contact hours for the taught element of the course. For the full-time version of the course, you would expect around, depending on the average week, about 12 hours of taught time. And then, as I say, added to that, the preparation that goes alongside that. When I'm asked by students what that actually means, I generally try and encourage them to kind of think of it as a sort of full-time commitment, because with the amount of reading and the preparation for the seminars, that's usually how it breaks down. Some students like to kind of use the Courtauld as their office, effectively 9 to 5 here, and that would certainly cover it. Others work more flexibly, would do work in the evenings, but either way, the preparation for the seminars and the lectures needs to be factored in. We have another question about the part-time course. What amount of time would be needed per week for the lectures and so on? We have, depending on the module, so for example, for foundations, there are 2 lectures, each of an hour. and that is supplemented by a 1 hour or 1.5 hour, forget which, but a discussion class. So as I say, the lectures could be viewed, you could watch the recordings for the lectures, but you would need to attend the discussion class. The same for the histories module. There would be a lecture element, but then also a discussion class. We have another question again on the part-time course, which I'm delighted about. Someone who lives outside of London and who is not really accessible in North Norfolk easily for Vernon Square, asking whether they would need to stay in London Monday to Friday. Not probably for the part-time element, no. I mean, if you want to do the full-time, you would need to be here Monday to Friday, but for the part-time element, it would be more likely to be, as I said, 2 days. I should say that currently I have colleagues, Alex and I have colleagues hard at work on the timetable, which is a complex piece of planning. So it'll take us a few more weeks to finalise that. But again, we can keep you posted on that. Another question, thank you very much. This is somebody who has wants to carry on working 2 days a week in a gallery role during the course. And the question is, do you find many students tend to continue part-time work during the course? And do you feel it affects their results in any way? This is a great question. Thank you very much. The answer is yes. Many of our students on all of our programs, I think that's fair to say, Alex, do work part-time alongside whether it's the undergraduate or MA or the graduate diploma. And again, it's a personal, often necessity. So what we say is you can manage to do that. Care needs to be taken around the time of assessments, but the advantage with all of our courses, including the graduate diploma, is that you know what your deadlines are at the start of the year. So there's no nasty surprises, and that's hopefully helpful in planning. So with that planning, and once you've got awareness of which days you're going to need to be on site, then and hopefully that would be workable. We have another question about the part-time, how many days needing to attend. As I've said, our aim is that will be 2 days each week to physically attend on the part-time course. Right, I'm just keeping up to date with the questions. Thank you so much. It's great to have so much interest in the programme and so many questions. We have another question wanting to know a bit more about how the part-time is going to work. Does it work exactly the same as the full-time course? So studying alongside the full-time students, but simply that 50% of classes are taken each year. So it takes full-time, it takes 2 years to complete. Yes, the answer to that is you will be integrated with the full-time students, those on the part-time course, and we feel that that is a very important aspect to learning here, so that you get the benefit, even though you're not here as often as the full-time students are of that cohort experience. You would be in discussion classes, part-time and full-time students together. The difference being that the studies are spread over 2 academic years rather than compressed into 1 year as on the full-time course. We have another question more on the practical element. Alex, perhaps this is one for you. Is there housing provided for graduate diploma students?
Absolutely. So we have a range of accommodation available. The accommodation for postgraduate students is predominantly based around our own halls of residence, Duchy House, which is located just really on the Strand, close to the Somerset House campus. There's a range of rooms available there. And then we also have access to rooms in the University of London intercollegiate halls, which are more based in Bloomsbury, and some of which are catered. Our website has a whole ton of information about the accommodation that's available. And once you hopefully go on to get an offer for the programme, you'll have access to the accommodation application form and kind of the details about which would be eligible to you as a postgraduate student.
Thanks, Alex. And I think another question on that, which is someone who's coming from abroad to find accommodation for the first year, that the same would apply, presumably, from what you've just said.
Exactly, yeah. And accommodation is typically prioritised based on distance from London and prior study in the UK. There are two factors that we take into account. So if you're an international student, you've not studied in the UK before, you'll be prioritised for accommodation. But even if you're in the UK and kind of based in, Cumbria or somewhere like that, then absolutely still apply. There's a good chance that you'd be considered too.
Thanks, Alex. A great question here. For those of us that are coming from a really left field arc of career, e.g. the military, are you open to also allowing us a short interview? Great question. The broader the background of students from my point of view, and I think the Institute's point of view, the better. We have had students who have come from a military background. To give you a rough flavour, we have in this year's cohort a retired consultant psychiatrist. We have a couple of people who've worked in finance. We have someone who's working currently actually still at the National Gallery. We have usually in every given year, there are a couple of lawyers. That was my own background. So it's a real range. And we think, and there's good evidence to support this, that it really enhances the experience of learning, and that goes not just from the point of view of the students, but from comments I have from my colleagues, from faculty and from teaching assistants who really enjoy the diverse range of people that they meet on this programme. Is admissions rolling? Alex, question for you.
So what I would say is that I would encourage you to apply for the deadline of the 22nd of April for the best chance of being considered in the first instance alongside everyone else who applies on that deadline. We never quite know how many applications we're going to receive in a year. So if we get loads of really great applications on the 22nd of April and go into that kind of review period into May, it could well be that the number of places that are available decreases, obviously, up until that point. So whilst we, and often we may consider applications through into the summer months, if you can get an application in ahead of that deadline, you give yourself the best opportunity of being considered for the programme. Hopefully that's clear.
Thank you, Alex. A question on the practical side of things. Are the lectures during the day? Yes, they are. The foundations lectures, for example, this year are scheduled at 10 a.m. on Monday and Wednesday. If you're considering the part-time option, you'd be able to watch the recordings of those. But yes, our lectures run during daytime hours. The earliest lecture is 10 a.m. and I think the last class usually finishes. I don't think there are any classes that go beyond 5 o'clock. I think I'm right on that, Alex, in our timetable. When we have got a bit further down the timetable planning route, it may be that we are able to highlight certain of the optional modules, and so you'd be able to see the time of those classes, and that might be able to steer you in your choice if you need to get away for childcare or other responsibilities. Another question on whether I need to express interest in the part-time or full-time option when making the application. Yes, please. That would be very helpful if you are clear which option of the course, which iteration of the course you would like. We have a specific question here about would it be possible to study for the course but not be available between January and March on the part-time module. That would be tricky, I'm afraid, because of the fact that of the requirement to be able to attend discussion classes during that period. So I'm afraid if you were going to be absent for 3 full months, say, I mean, if it was going to be a matter of a week or two, we on this course tend to be quite flexible because of often the demands of people coming on this programme are complicated, either through work or through caring responsibilities. So the odd week here or there doesn't matter, but sustained absence would be a problem, I'm afraid. Another question on the preparation for coming here. Do we offer a sort of foundation course for someone who's been out of study for who has a good degree but's been out of higher education for some time. I mean, the foundation course, the diploma itself, I would say, is what we offer for that. We do have, I mean, as I said, the graduate diploma course, as its title suggests, is for graduates. And most of those the idea being that those graduates are non-history of art. We have had people who've done history of art, but a long time ago, who've come back and wanted a refresher. So that's what we offer on the diploma, and that is our best option for people who've been out of higher education but want to say. Are interested in applying for a master's. I think it's pretty fair to say, and Alex, you could probably say this too, having because your remit covers the master's applications as well as the graduate diploma. But certainly the master's programme is very competitive, as is our diploma. But many of the special options tutors like to see candidates who've come from the diploma because that's a good test of their abilities. Alex is nodding.
I am indeed, yeah.
We have a question about languages. Someone who studied languages at undergrad, are there any chances to use language skills on the programme? That's a great question. We have some students, interestingly, and I should point out, who've taken optional language modules at King's through our link up with King's. That's entirely voluntary, but it is they're discounted, and that's an option for people who want to carry on with some sort of language training. The answer about whether language skills are useful, I would say not for our core modules, but say, for example, when you were looking at a dissertation topic, I would normally be wary of a student that comes to me and says, I want to work on this work of art, which is currently in the Uffizi in Florence, but all the scholarship is in Italian. If I was having that conversation with a non-Italian speaker, I would say I would not do that. I would be very cautious about that. So if you have good language skills, it opens up potentially the ability to look at areas, objects that other students without those abilities might not have. So that would be an asset. We have a question about the particular days assigned to the live lectures and seminars, combining the course with other part-time activities, and we need to plan each week. Yes, we understand that this is an important aspect to that, and there will be particular days assigned to the lectures and the seminars. And I would ask you to bear with us as we go through the process of planning the timetable, and we will keep you posted as to when the draft timetable is available. We have another question about connecting students to internships. Alex, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think that's something that the careers department are really well equipped to help you with. There's lots of opportunities that come through our alumni network, through the careers department, and also just helping you to find those and kind of prepare your application and your CV for those kind of opportunities. So yeah, that is something that our careers department are really well equipped to help discuss with you and kind of prep you for, and kind of help you find the great opportunities that there are being based in London.
Thanks, Alex. Another question from somebody with mobility issues and wondering if the Courtauld and associated buildings are step-free. To my knowledge, Vernon Square is. I'm not so sure about Somerset House, Alex.
It's greatly improved in its accessibility on the gallery side since the development work and the kind of reopening of the gallery. It's not 100% step-free, but it's greatly improved in terms of accessibility. Vernon Square and kind of the teaching on site at Vernon Square is all step-free, absolutely.
Thank you. Question, do you have a range of preparation work, e.g. reading visits you'd recommend before starting the course? Yes, is the short answer to that. I email successful applicants after the period of, say, June, usually end of May, June, with a suggested reading list and some ideas for how to prepare. We also host a number of events, one online and one in the gallery for successful applicants. So it gives people a chance to meet each other and prepare for the course. Question, why is the diploma a smaller class of 30? That's an interesting one, Alex. Perhaps you can speak to the history of that.
It's good, yeah, a good question. I think it's in part my feeling on this has always been that it's to really build that kind of cohort that you mentioned earlier. If it was a much broader program in terms of the size, I think it would be partly to the detriment of that kind of cohort building and the successful kind of the friendships and the kind of collaborative element that we have on the program, and really giving everybody with those interesting kind of diverse backgrounds and kind of approaches into the program more time to kind of demonstrate and speak to those that broad range. So I think that's part of it. I think it's lent itself to the kind of division of the different options within the program. So I think that also helps. And also, to a certain extent too, it's the way that it builds into the undergraduate program as well. I think it kind of makes a lot of sense in terms of the size there too. So I think there's some of the reasons there.
Thanks, Alex. I agree with all of those points. Absolutely. I would say that our small group teaching is something that we're very proud of here, and frankly, it's quite difficult to get larger groups in front of paintings. We manage it, as I showed you, with the Trinity altarpiece in the Courtauld Gallery, but we also kind of like to keep our class sizes manageable to allow for that sort of access. Another question about applying. Would you suggest applying to the MA instead of the graduate diploma for a student who's completing a bachelor's degree in business management? Alex, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, really good question. I think there's always a possibility to do that, and certainly with the application form this year, it's easier to apply to multiple programs. I wouldn't want to say that you wouldn't be in contention for one of the programs. I could also mention the fact that there is new to us this year for the first year a MA in art and business. So it could well be that your business background could be of interest and could be a way into that program as well. And certainly now you could apply to one of the MA level programs and the graduate diploma and be considered for both. And it could well be that in the course of being considered for the MA level study, that we just think that there's, the graduate diploma could be a really great platform for you to build our historical knowledge into the MA level study that we offer at the Courtauld. So absolutely, you could certainly get an application in for both programs and be considered for that. And it could well be that we think ultimately reviewing your application, the graduate diploma is really well suited for you as an applicant.
Thanks, Alex. Question here, does the Courtauld assist with student visas, I beg your pardon, for overseas students?
Absolutely, yes. So we are able to provide a CAS, which is the document which is confirmation of acceptance of studies. That is our kind of sponsorship of you as a student here at the Courtauld, and kind of guide you through some of the visa application process. And indeed, kind of guide you through to the post-study kind of graduate route visa as well down the line. So there's absolutely my team are able to kind of guide you and assist you through that. And we give you more kind of guidance and information about some of the things and the steps that are required. Kind of as you kind of progress through, you'll obviously need to have an unconditional offer and firmly accept it before we can kind of get through to provide you some of those details down the line.
Thanks, Alex. Someone is asking, for those who graduated many years ago, is there a format or a list of essay topics for the application process? I mean, we don't have a sort of suggested list of topics, as Alex was suggesting. We encourage people to go and look, go to a gallery, go to a museum and choose often a combination of paintings or sculptures and write on them. If you would like some further guidance on that, I'm happy to respond. You can email the PG admissions email address and I can certainly help with that. But this is really meant just to be a chance for me to be able to assess how you write about art or buildings or whatever you want to choose, and I'm not expecting a sort of high-level academic piece of writing, but I'm looking for evidence of close looking and engagement with the art. So I'm happy to advise on that separately. What kind of key transferable skills would you like to see addressed in the essay or the references? I think in the essay, as I've just said, how you engage with and look at the objects, I think would be the thing I'm particularly looking for. We will be training you in visual analysis, but why you've chosen the objects fundamentally and what interests you about them would be a good aspect of, or a good question to try and answer in that writing sample. Alex, do you want to speak to the transferable skills in the references?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could look to think of things around evidence of how you've read critically, how you presented ideas to others or to an audience, how you've developed independent research skills, evidence of kind of collaborative work. And as Teresa mentioned, things around close reading, kind of visual comprehension, those are the key kind of transferable skills coming into the program that I think if your referees can attest to, that will be, put you in the best position for us to kind of understand where you're coming from your professional background, if that's where that referee is coming from.
Thanks, Alex. And related to that, another question on references. Could you suggest some examples of acceptable alternatives to academic references for someone who's been out of education for a long time?
Yeah, I think it's where it can get a little tricky. It depends on what you have been doing, and some work will be more relevant than others. And I guess the more within the cultural sector it might be, the more kind of obvious it can sometimes be. I guess if it's further away from that, say that you're coming from a place where you're dealing in presenting complex data, that can still be something that you can filter into being a transferable skill. There's still kind of comprehension of complex information, and that can be something that you could transfer across. I think maybe to give you the kind of other side of it, what might not be as easy, but you can still find ways of kind of using, is where it's really, there's not anything like that there, but then it's just kind of hard work and kind of due diligence that you've, attention to detail, kind of care that you've given. I think those then become the transferable skills that you can get across. If it's, really difficult to find kind of cultural touchstones that you can use as a transferable point in, that's where it's really about your work ethic and kind of, those kind of more tangible things that you can transfer across.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's exactly right. Another one for you, Alex. Could you just talk about a question about what funding is available for the course?
Sure. So I would direct you to our postgraduate funding page, which kind of goes into some details about what funding might be available for the graduate diploma. Unfortunately, the programme isn't eligible for our own internal Courtauld scholarship funding, but there are other external sources of funding that might be available or might be relevant to you, depending on where you're applying from in the world as well. Be it, as an overseas student, there might be kind of funding available from your own government, or for example, Americans could access US federal loans. There's ways that you might be able to secure funding, depending on where you're applying from in the world.
Thanks, Alex. We have a question about our formal holidays. I think the academic year dates should be available on the Courtauld website. I haven't checked recently, but to answer it just for here and now, our semesters, our 2 semesters are both 12 weeks. And this year, I think starting in kind of second half of September, so running through to sort of mid-December effectively. And then again, mid-January, running 12 weeks, hence from that, and then followed by an assessment period. But the website should be updated with the current information on the academic year, obviously for this year, but also for next year. A question here on references, about flexibility on the deadline for professional references. Someone who's a mature student who's been in business for the last 30 years. So is there some flexibility there, Alex?
What I would say is we typically allow for a week or two following the deadline for references to come through. So when you actually submit the application, that's the point that we send invites to the 2 references that you provide. For them to kind of directly input their reference into our system. So we know that will, if you apply on the deadline day of the 22nd of April, that will be the point where we actually email them and contact them and invite them to put those references in. And we know that will take a bit of time. So yeah, we typically allow for a week or 2 following the deadline. I would say that if it's beyond that point, there's a risk that if 1 or 2 of your references aren't in, it might impact how quickly we can review our application. And kind of what I said earlier around kind of rolling applications and around the program, the number of places available in the program kind of shrinking as we kind of make more offers in May. That's what you just want to be cautious of running into. So I think that would be the window you have. A week or 2 after the application deadline should be absolutely fine.
Thanks, Alex. The question's also asking about the format of written work and saying, would something from business, previous life in business be suitable? I mean, the answer is it could be. I think, I certainly have reviewed diverse essays in the past few years. And those have ranged from chemistry through to astrophysics. It's always helpful if it just is the best, showcasing your academic ability is what I'd say. So I think that's a sort of question for you to think about, and perhaps again, if you have a specific, we can always respond on that one-to-one. A question about whether the completion of the diploma earns any credits which can be applied to the MA programme should candidates choose to go on to continue their education at the Courtauld. Alex, I think that's probably one for you.
That's a really interesting question. I think my suggestion there would be to email us at the PG Admissions email address, and we can kind of give you a bit more of a full and clear response on that, because I think it's it does give credits, exactly how they transfer, etc. I think we want to give you a kind of clear and detailed response. So I think that's one for to email us in at the PG Admissions address. We'll give you a fuller response there.
Thank you, Alex. A question about why the price of the diploma and the MA is the same. I think you've given the details of the pricing information on any earlier. This question is, does the diploma student awarded the same amount of higher education credits as the MA student?
I think in terms of pricing, I mean, it becomes a complicated question in many ways. I think the cost of a program takes into account the teaching and the access and the kind of provision of resources, etc. It's not directly tied to the level of study. It's not, you don't pay more for a higher level degree. That's not how costing for programs is kind of calculated. So it's not an equivalent in that sense. It's really in terms of the contact hours, the, as I say, provision of information and kind of access to the facilities, etc. That kind of is the detail that kind of compromises the calculated cost of a program, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Alex. Question about whether there'll be the same amount of places, part-time as full-time. It's difficult to answer that, to be honest with you. We are, as you know, this is the first year we've offered that. So we offered the part-time iteration of the course. So we are assessing the level of interest and we'll be deciding that as part of that. Good question here, interesting question here, which may be of interest to several of the attendees. Someone asking, it'd be extremely helpful to get some guidance around applying for the diploma versus the MA in History of Art. Is it possible to apply for both at the same time, and how would such an application be assessed?
So I mentioned it a little bit earlier, one of the things for this cycle, application portal absolutely allows you to apply for 2 programs, and most of the details are fairly similar. If you're applying for both a MA level program and the graduate diploma, the subtle differences might be in the length of the written work sample. So what you would want to do and kind of make sure you kind of catch this is look at the application guidance that kind of precedes the access to the application portal. Look at the requirements for the higher level of studies or the MA level program that you're applying for, and submit those documents at that level. So that way you're not kind of submitting a written work sample that's under the length required for some of the other programs. So if you're applying for a program that requires, a written work sample of between 3,000 and 5,000 words, submit that document at that length, and that way you're kind of covered for that program. And then Teresa will have to look at a few more words when she looks at that application for the graduate diploma. But that's kind of the subtle differences there. Otherwise, most of the process and most of the requirements of documentation are pretty much the same. So do look carefully through the application guidance for the programs that you're applying for. Just catch those subtle differences where they might be. And that's mainly the main one. I think some of the other programs have some specific questions that come up as well. But that should all be handled within the application portal. When you apply for both the programs, it will give you the relevant information for both of those.
Thanks, Alex. A question on timetabling here. Does teaching discussion classes happen on the same day of the week? We are trying to, we're looking at this actively now, is the short answer. And as I've said, what I can tell you is the limit to physical attendance being 2 days each week, but more details will be following on that over the next few weeks. Another question on fees, Alex, when they need to be paid, and is payment by instalments available?
So if you're made an offer, the first thing would be to firmly accept the offer. You have to pay a deposit that goes towards your tuition fees. So it's set at £500 for a home student, £1,000 for an international student. We calculate your fees based on the information you provide as part of the application. That comes off of your tuition fee. So it's not an additional amount, it's kind of an upfront part to kind of firmly show that you're kind of committed to the program. Then when you go on to pay tuition fees, it's typically part of the enrollment process. So closer to that kind of September start date. As part of the enrollment process, you make that payment. You can apply to pay in 2 installments. That'll be in the first semester and the second semester, or just up front. And that takes into account alumni discounts, etc., etc. So that kind of covers all of that. The main way that most people pay is via the online payment system that's kind of built into that enrollment process, which is through an online payment system called Flywire. There's a few cases where some people applying from certain countries sometimes encounter problems with that, in which case you just contact my team and we can kind of tell you how to make an alternative payment. But typically we direct everyone to pay through that means.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. A question about whether it's been considered to deliver the course on a block or weekly module, a full week of teaching every term in school breaks and holidays. The answer is yes, it is being considered. It is not currently on offer, but as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we are actively here at the Courtauld looking at our part-time provision. So that may well be something that is rolled out in the future, but not currently. Another question here based on how many of the MA modules is a graduate diploma allowed to undertake. The answer is our graduate diploma students do not take any of the MA options. They are not able to join the MA classes. Those are limited to our MA students. So you stick within your cohort during the diploma, and then if you apply for the MA, that's when you progress into those modules. When does the list of modules to choose from made available, and are these known at the time of enrolment? Alex, do you have any insight into that?
To tell the truth, I don't. It might be slightly different this year with the part-time offer as well. So the exact timeframes I don't have to hand, but we'll certainly roll out more information about the timeframe for that and what you might expect as we go through into the summer months, early into the summer months.
Yes, and it's certainly my hope. Again, I don't have a specific date, but you would know ahead of enrolment what modules you'll be taking, because you will be approached about that earlier. Yes, so I can add to that. There is a question about if you are offered a place on the full-time and you want to be interested in part-time, I think get in touch with the PG admissions email address, please, to pursue that. The fees, difference between full-time and part-time fees, again, I think are those up to date and accurate on the website, Alex?
I'm just going to take a look quickly myself now. I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay. Another question here: is it required to be proficient in additional languages for reading for admissions? No, we don't require any additional languages. For those who are not native English speakers, there are some requirements, as Alex pointed out, but other than that, no other requirements are needed. This is an interesting question, which I suspect may apply to several of the people who have been listening in. I was advised by admissions to apply for this course after not being successful with the MA. Would my application be considered alongside other people who applied directly to the graduate diploma? The answer is, I think, yes, Alex.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be considered alongside direct applicants to the programme. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there scholarships available for the part-time option?
There were not any internal scholarships available, no, unfortunately.
Yeah. As a mature student, is there any flexibility considering applications if a 2-2 was achieved almost 30 years ago? The answer is yes, as Alex said, we do have some flexibility here. This would be an important thing to address in your personal statement, I think, Alex, am I right?
Yeah, I would just highlight that point, and absolutely, there's a degree of flexibility. We really do look at the applications. I mean, to all of our programs, it's one of the benefits of being a small specialist institution. We can take that kind of time and care across all the applications that we do receive, but particularly for the graduate diploma, we really have an appreciation of people coming from different kind of periods in and out of education, different approaches, etc. So yeah, absolutely. If you have any concerns about it, just let my team know at the PG admissions email address, and we'll be able to just kind of reassure you about how to get that information in there. Thanks,
Alex. Question here about the curriculum. Is it possible to focus on art post-1850 and or art photography? No, is the short answer. The very nature of the graduate diploma and its selling point is its breadth. And because it is this sort of compressed version of the undergraduate degree, you do study a broad range of periods and media. So photography may be one of those, but it won't be exclusive to that. If you want to focus on a specific period or a type of art, that is what you would move on to look at for the MA. But the graduate diploma, by definition, is broad. Another question about someone's background and interest. As a graduating fashion historian, would you suggest applying to the MA or the graduate diploma? Would a fashion history essay be okay in my application, or would you prefer an art history essay?
I think it would be entirely a perfectly acceptable and kind of appropriate thing to submit as part of the written work sample, and certainly would be an interesting. It's often we have applicants who kind of fall somewhere between the graduate diploma and the MA History of Art. As a fashion historian, I think whilst we don't necessarily have, as we used to a few years ago, have an MA option specifically on the history of dress and kind of a more fashion-orientated option, it certainly could be something that could get you onto the MA directly. So you might want to consider applying for an MA level program in the first instance and see how you get on with that application. It's in that kind of in-between space a little bit, perhaps. I'd say, there's a good chance you could be considered for the MA level program too, but absolutely the graduate diploma. If not, your application, I'm sure, will be well received.
Thank you, Alex. Another question on costs, which will make sure that the website is updated following this webinar. A question about only one reference being available. Is that a problem?
You do need 2 references. So it might well be that you have 1 academic reference and 1 professional reference. If you don't have the ability to get any academic references, then 2 professional references. If not, in a push, I guess you could start to think about kind of character references, but I think that's when you might want to just contact us at the PG Admissions address at our team, and we can kind of give you a sense of whether or not we think a referee might be appropriate or not. It is good if we can get some kind of real a solid reference that has some kind of weight behind it, and to really your abilities and kind of transferable skills coming into the program. I think it is really worthwhile trying to think about who's best available to testify to those transferable skills and your interests in the program. And having a plurality of voices really does strengthen the application. I think it would be, 1 reference would be a detriment if you can only find 1. I think I would really think about who is out there who could really speak to your abilities. I think it really does give us that sense of 2 voices really strengthening your application.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Very interesting question here, very good question about the prestige. How does the prestige of the MA and the diploma differ in the eyes of the art world? This is a really interesting question. I think it varies, to be honest. I mean, I think what I would say, and Alex, can add to this, but the Courtauld as a brand name is very strong in the art world generally. I can really only speak to the track record of previous graduates from the Courtauld graduate diploma, many of which who have not stayed on for an MA are working in art world jobs now. So I think that speaks for itself. That said, as you don't need me to tell you that the art world is competitive. So for some people, say for example, if you're looking for a career as a curator, you would probably be looking to stay on and do an NMA. Certain jobs, certain fields will have different requirements. So I think it depends, but the prestige would apply equally across both programs. Alex, is there anything you'd add on that?
No, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. I think the graduate diploma gives you a really good platform for further study, be it here or elsewhere, and I think that's really one aspect of it. And I think in terms of the jobs market, I think the Courtauld as a name on your CV is a really strong thing within the sector. So I think, pragmatically, obviously, there's different levels of study between the graduate diploma and the MA. It's why I think so many people do get the bug and want to stay on and go on to do the MA and sometimes beyond, understandably. But certainly the Courtauld as a kind of something on your CV, something that kind of gives you a platform, I think gives you a really good position going forward.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that, absolutely. And the other thing I'd say, and I know this because I've written many references for current and past students, is there are other ways to distinguish yourself. For example, I have had in last year's cohort, 2 students who applied successfully, one of whom got on the Peggy Guggenheim in Venice, very competitive internship scheme whilst on the graduate diploma. She's just completed it last summer. Another of whom completed the Sotiris Phelios Fellowship in Athens, both graduate diploma students. So for those people who are looking for, trying to get into the art world, for example, for many employers, that kind of practical experience, actually working on the inside, is going to be really attractive. So, I can speak to the experiences of the current cohorts in that respect.
Yeah, and I think actually it really builds on what we look for, and the benefit and the thing that we really love about the graduate diploma being such a diverse program and the diversity of people coming onto the program. I think going on beyond that, be it in education or in the jobs market, the same values and the same things that make you stand out at the graduate diploma level go on as well. So I think it really builds on that. If you're coming from, as somebody said earlier, a left field discipline like the military, I think it makes you stand out if you come and do the graduate diploma and kind of gives you an interesting point of view that other people will also really value and take into account.
Yeah, and I think, this is where the cohort and the alumni network really come in, because the contacts you make during your year or years here, and the people you meet are an important part of that networking, if you like, and not just social interaction, but professional as well. We're coming to the end of the questions. Thank you for a fascinating range of and really brilliant questions, which I hope have been of broad interest to people who have been listening and have stayed with us. Final question, which is a good one to end on, asking if graduate diploma students are able to sit on lectures for other courses at the Courtauld. As I explained in relation to auditing, for example, MA modules, the answer to that is no. However, what I would say is we have a very active research forum, which pretty much during term time, most days of the week, is some form of lecture, seminar, discussion, sometimes all-day conferences, which are as diverse as you can imagine from an institution like the Courtauld. For myself, I was on Friday attending the Postgraduate Medieval Colloquium, which was an all-day event, early career researchers presenting. You will find a huge range of topics and speakers available to you for the diploma. And the conversation I have typically with many graduate diploma students at the start of the year is they want to do everything, go to obviously all their classes, all their mandatory classes, of course, but also go to as many of the research forum events and other things they can. Most people, through practical reasons, pragmatic reasons, certainly around deadlines, have to kind of rein that in. But it's very, very, I think, enriching to be part of such a vibrant research culture that we have here and that we foster here. So you are welcome to attend those lectures and those events in the way that your diary allows and your schedule allows. So I think we have come to the end of our Q&A, and as I said, thank you for your active participation. We really hope, Alex and I, that we have been able to interest you in our course here, and also through the questions be able to flesh out a bit of detail. As is clear, there are obviously some things that are still being decided on our side, timetable being one of those. So we would ask that you keep an eye on our website and you email us with specific questions, and we will keep you posted. But in the meantime, Alex and I think would like to thank you for your joining us and for making the conversation so vibrant. And for myself, I look forward to hopefully receiving your application.
Great. Best of luck.
Bye-bye.